Today is April 8th, 2019, and today we are here for the departmental presentation portion of the aldermanic budget process. But before we begin, will everyone please rise as we salute our flag? Madam Secretary, will you please take the roll?
Alderman Anderson. Alderman Beatty.
Present.
Alderman Fortunati.
Here.
Alderman Gaynor. Here. Alderman Gurman. Here. Alderman Gennatasio.
Here.
Alderman Golden. Here. Alderman Grant.
Here.
Alderman Hardeman. Here. Alderman Smith. Alderman Sutton.
Here.
Alderman Tranquilli. Here. Alderman Vecchiarelli.
Here.
Alderman Vitro.
Here.
Alderman Vitale. Here. 13 present.
13 present. We do have a quorum. I'd like to entertain a motion to come out of recess.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion's made and seconded to come out of recess. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're out of recess. At this point, the first department organizational is on our agenda is the Harbor Commission. Page 109 in your books. A. Swift, good evening.
Good evening, Ray Swift, Director of Milford Listman Landing. I feel like I just did this. That was last Monday. Anyway, the landing, we're getting ready for the new season. And as I spoke about last week, it feels like a kind of a fresh start down at the landing. The marina's been completely redecked, doing a lot of painting inside the building. The patio is new. The sidewalks and the curbing are new. Like I said, it feels like a fresh start, and we're looking forward to the season.
Well, let me first by telling you what a great job you're doing down there. All the pier looks great. The ramps even are done. I saw the pile of lumber next to the boat.
Yes.
Boat ramps. It looks like they just got through doing that.
Yeah, we just got a couple loose ends to finish up this whole project, which took on and off the better part of 6 months. But it was a great crew, a local crew. Who could work around us, and we worked around them, and it was probably the best way to get it done, as opposed to maybe coming in and trying to knock it out in a couple weeks or so. Worked perfect.
And the lighthouse is up and running.
Well, it's back up. A couple repairs.
Yeah.
The wind. We had some pretty strong winds
Pretty
this winter.
strong winds there, yes. Any questions from the board to Mr. Swift? Alderman Gennatasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. Ray, how are you?
Good, you?
Good, thank you. Positions. How many positions do you have at the harbor? I know that you have some people that help you out seasonally. Can you just give us an idea how many total positions are there?
It depends on the skill of the crew I have, the number of years they've been there. I fluctuate anywhere from 8 to 10. Typically keep it around 8 or 9. 10 would be on the high end. These kids, they want to work. They want the hours. It's always a balancing act between needing 6 of them for a Saturday or a Friday or a Saturday and still allowing them family vacations. So the crew is, like I said, typically between 8 and 10. And other than that, I'm the full-time employee there.
Just to follow up through you, Mr. Chairman. Ray, you have complete authorization to have up to 10 people? Is that a fair statement?
No, that's my call. I just go with what I need, try to keep it to a minimum.
My question is, if you needed an extra person, have you ever requested to have more than 10?
If I felt I needed more than 10, I would hire more than 10. My concern is the salary, the seasonal help salary cap, which typically gets used. This year, I think we're in a little better shape. There may be some leftover money there. The last couple years, the crew I have is gone to school sometime the end of August, where the month of September, I got about 6 weeks. I'm down there Monday through Friday afternoon. It's me, and so we've saved a little money there. But I hire who I think I need to get the job done.
Okay, understood. I just wanted to get an idea overall how many people
Yeah,
were there.
no specific positions. It's just comes under the heading of seasonal help.
Okay, great, thank you.
Alderman Gurman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Director Ray. First of all, I'd like to compliment you on all the, the way the place looks every season with all the plants and the groundskeeping. You guys do a great job, so I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And a question I have on the electricity. Seems like it jumped up quite a bit from last year. Is there a reason for that, or?
I don't know what the reason is, but it has, and I belong to Putatuck Yacht Club over in Stratford. Similar type building, marina, and they cannot come up with a reason why the electric bill is so high over there. I've noticed the last year and a half,
UI keeps increasing the rates?
I think it's rates. I don't think it's. I don't think the meter's spinning any faster. Could it be our solar panels, which are about 10 years old? Do they get weak over time? I've thought about that. I don't have a real explanation as to why the bill is high, but I did request an increase, and I've had to make a transfer this year to the electric account. We do supplement that with the marina fees. Our customers pay for electricity, and that goes into the electrical account, which will help me, over time. But it is high, I'll tell you.
I assume you already switched to LEDs and all that stuff where you can?
Inside the building, I think the lights along the walkway are still halogen or sodium. They're the same bulbs that have always been in there. I don't know what it would take to switch those over, but there could be some savings there, I imagine.
Yeah, sure. All right, thank you. Just curious.
Alderman Gamer.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. You've done a fabulous job, and the harbor being a gateway to Milford, I think it's just outstanding, the work that has been done. My question is, do you anticipate any other major repairs that will need to be done in the near future?
Because of the environment, hurricanes, ice, we don't always anticipate, but it's always something to think about. I mean, we had a good winter with no damage. We've had winters with 18 pilings taken out because of ice. So we always have to have that contingency fund in the event there is again, we're self-sustaining, and so we make sure that the money's there in the event we do have. And typically, it would be a weather-related incident. So.
Alderman Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. You talked about that the building has solar on it, but now you're noticing an increase. How old is the solar again?
Probably about 10 years. I think we were one of the first buildings in the city to have solar installed. It was part of a program the city signed into, and we were chosen because of the high visibility. Solar was pretty brand new at that time, and I believe it's been about 10 years.
Is there any plans to upgrade it?
I do not have any plans to upgrade it.
Alderman Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. So I had an opportunity to see the new decking and some of the floating docks, and the material is gorgeous, as we were talking about last week. But in the past, I know you've wanted to modernize the slip booking process. I know through some different partnerships and different ways you've explored it. Is there anything that you're currently doing, and can you talk about how the slips are being rented out?
No, we tried to go with an outfit called DOCWA, which stands for Dock Wide Area. They handle a lot of the bookings for marinas, and because of our big events, I'm constantly moving boats around. It'd be kind of tough to be taking reservations that way. As much as I thought we would try it, I think the system we use now of fielding phone calls, and people stopping in, a lot of our big weekends are sold out as it is. I haven't thought about going to anybody else, and I think the big issue there was credit card payments, which these companies tend to want to work with their financial system, and that they couldn't mesh it with the cities. So we turned away from it, and I don't think it, either way, it wasn't going to help or hurt us. We do pretty well just with the system we use now.
Any more questions from the board? Seeing none, thank you, Ray.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you for answering all our questions. Next department on our agenda is the Veterans Graves, page 89. Is there anybody here from Veterans Graves?
Mr. Chairman, if there's any questions, I can help to answer those.
Does anyone have any questions pertaining to Veterans Graves? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next department on the agenda is Milford Flotilla 73. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Page 90 in your books.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Alderman. I'm Sean Leapskin. I'm the president of Flotilla 73 Incorporated. We've been here in Milford since World War II, a very, very active flotilla, one of the Coast Guard auxiliaries most active. We're getting into our really busy season right now with teaching our boating safety classes. We just taught a class of 21 people. This past weekend, our patrol boat is getting ready to go in the water. Last year we completed 59 patrols, so our patrol boat is out on Thursday nights, Saturdays, Sundays, and other nights throughout the week, both as a training platform and for assisting the Coast Guard with any search and rescue missions that they need to do. We're an organization that's growing. We've taken in 13 new members in the past couple of months, and all of our new members want to be very, very actively involved. So we try to give back to the community in terms of boating safety classes. We're very, very active at all the marinas in Milford doing boating safety inspections, especially now with most of the fatalities coming from paddlecraft. It's a very, very easy entry segment into boating. So we're out there making sure, talking to people about wearing life jackets, having sound producing devices, both on our patrol boat and in the vessel safety checks that we do on the docks, and distributing if found stickers to people so we don't wind up wasting Coast Guard resources sending a search and rescue if it's just somebody's kayak that got loose from a dock. So for our operations, we have a building here on 1 Hellwig Street that we have our boating safety classes in. We have those once a month for boating safety classes. We run 3 navigation classes a year, and in our building we run member training anywhere between 2 and 3 times a week. We go out to different marinas and support other flotillas as well, so we're asking for our $9,000 grant. We appreciate what the city has done for us in the past in forging a partnership with Flotilla 73 so that we can continue to run the patrol boat and to educate and serve the citizens of Milford. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. went by the harbor today, I saw your boat out there floating. Other than the clam boats, that's the only boat out there right now. Looks good. Anybody have any questions for Flotilla 73? Thank you. Alderman Beatty.
Thank you. I just want a clarification. Did you say most fatalities are related to, or what did you say about?
Right now, what the Coast Guard is noticing, the most significant amount of fatalities are coming from paddlecraft. There's no state education that's required. You can go to any big box store, buy a kayak, a canoe, a stand-up paddleboard, put it into the water and operate. So most of the people, most of the fatalities, I should say, that are related to paddlecraft from people not wearing life jackets. State law requires you to wear a life jacket up from October 1st to May 31st, and after that, it's up to the individual wearer. So we're seeing a lot of people who are drowning because they're neglecting to wear life jackets, or they exceed their capabilities. And this is nationwide, but because the Coast Guard and the Coast Guard Auxiliary have been so active, those number of fatalities now are actually starting to decrease through efforts in education and enforcement. The active duty Coast Guard is out there on the 4th of July weekends, Memorial Day weekend, actually making sure that people are wearing life jackets, and they're actually conducting boardings. Sounds a little strange for a big patrol boat to come up to a paddlecraft, but they really want to make sure that people are safe, and we do our educational efforts as we're out there on patrol. By the way, this is Kurt Palmer, and he's our chief of operations, so he's in charge of that.
It makes your work with education even more important, because unlike power boats where alcohol is related, and use of alcohol on small craft is the reason, is that correct, for fatality? So this is different. It's really people at risk who don't wear life vests, and
It's
there is no
people
training.
who don't have life vests, who don't take out the appropriate safety equipment, who are saying, well, you know, I can go kayaking, you know, in any particular area, and not really knowing self-rescue techniques and being overconfident in their abilities, or not taking account to the weather. Of course, there is no mandatory education for kayaking, whereas the state, you have to get a state boating license, you have to take the 8-hour class. So the educational requirement is missing, so that's where we try to fill in and educate people. And then when the town has its paddlecraft race around Charles Island, we're out there both on the ground and on the patrol boat supporting that. So we're trying to reach as many paddlecrafters as possible. We also collect data for the active duty Coast Guard, so they know where paddlecraft are in our different areas of operation, so they can send their patrol boats as well to make sure that people are following the necessary safety rules. It's a really, really big concern right now for the Coast Guard.
So not to belabor it, it's budget,
Sure.
not the other, but to the gentleman who does the education, what would be the fix for this? To, you know, what would be something to do to improve this situation? How to, mandatory at the state levels for small?
Well, one of the things that Sean referred to was our presence out there on the water, and the more presence we have out there, we feel the better exposure we have to the folks that are out there. As he said, a lot of drownings happen due to paddlecraft, but the other thing that he didn't mention is most of them happen in the early and late months of the season, when the water temperature is cold, but the air temperature is warm. So it's going to come up very soon where the water temperature is going to be in the 50s, and the air temperature is going to be 75 to 80 degrees. And people are going to be out there and think it's nice and warm. They don't need a life jacket. That's where the big problem is. Someone goes in the water when it's 58 degrees. They've got less than 10 minutes to survive out there before they're in big trouble if they don't have that with them. So for us, more exposure, the more time we can spend out there, the better off it is for everybody in the boating community. And
Thank you very much.
Alderman Giannatasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, sir.
Quick question. You expensed $9,500 in 17-18. I was just wondering what the extra expense was, or was that something that was cut from your budget, because you're only asking for $9,000? Are you aware of that?
We're aware that, you know, all municipalities right now are having to cut back on budgets given the fiscal constraints they're facing, so we wanted to do our part to, you give something back, not ask for as much funding. We're asking for the minimum amount of funding to facilitate our operations to serve the community and our membership.
Okay, I do recall, I think they did give back the last cycle.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
All right, thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome, sir.
And moving forward, are you looking for a new location? Because rumor has it that you're moving, is that accurate?
We are in discussions right now with the city about possibly going over to the Fowler Building, about possibly using space over in Parsons. So Kurt Palmer is the head of our negotiating committee, and he's been talking with Julie Nash, and we're going through the list of conditions that will be necessary for our flotilla to be able to move, which, in essence, to be able to run our boating safety classes, which we run once a month, and have access to a space and a time frame that's predictable, as well as to run our classes for our membership and have space for all of our different training materials. We're active pretty much throughout the week, 12 months a year. So, but yes, we are actively negotiating with the city.
Okay, is there an advantage to staying where you are now? Is there something that you would like to bring to our attention as far as where you are now, why that, is probably a benefit for you?
Well, it's our home. The founding fathers of Flotilla put that building together in the 1950s with mortgages that they took out on their own and paid back. So there's a lot of sweat equity that's went into the building. There's a lot of sentimental value. The location is great. We are the only tenant in our building, so we have unrestricted access. And as I said, we run boating safety classes once a month. We have what we call auxiliary operational classes where we train the membership. We have a flotilla meeting twice a month. So we're active in that building throughout the week. People are going in there constantly to get materials. When our boat is in the water, we store all of our boating gear is in there, the things that we not store on the boat. So it really helps us to be, the way we would say it, to be the master in our own house, be able to schedule our training, be able to welcome the public in a facility that we, as the auxiliary, built in the 1950s. So we're very attached to that location, but if we can find a facility working with the city where we can meet our training needs and we can meet our membership needs, then we're definitely willing to be a good partner to discuss that.
Okay, well, I hope that, maybe possibly you find such a place, and I'm sorry, that you're put under those circumstances. How much notice were you actually given?
We haven't received any notice yet that we're moving anywhere. So right now we are just in the stage of discussions with the city. It's been a process that we've been debating back and forth probably for around the last year and a half, with letters going back and forth, discussions. Recently, Kurt was appointed to head our negotiating committee. So I'm gonna turn it over to Kurt because I think he would probably like to address that.
At this point, there are no immediate plans for us to be required to vacate our home as we know it. We are actively working with the city to try and put together a partnership, but at this point, there's no deadline that's been established that we're aware of.
Is there a possibility that you might stay there, or is it?
Well, in conversations that were had, it was mentioned that if we don't come to some type of agreement where we can put something together, that we would not be evicted from our home. So that would be a yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Alderman Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, sir.
With all this discussion, begs the question, what is your original agreement with the city? In the current agreement?
Our current agreement, we still have, it was originally a 99-year lease with the city. I believe we have another 40 years that are left after that lease. So as long as we are maintaining insurance on our building, we are keeping the building in good repair, we have another 40-year lease on the building, sir.
So the original agreement was a 97-year lease or 99-year lease?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Alderman Tranquilli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. I just want to say, I took the boating safety course for my wife last year, and it was very informative. I think it's great that you can offer the residents these services. I guess my question is, do you find more people are taking the boater safety course now than in the past? Are more people concerned with what's going on in boating safety on the water than they used to be?
I think boating tends to be a cyclical industry, so the numbers do tend to go up and down over the years. Our numbers have been fairly steady. We've seen some higher numbers in the past, but we've had a good year for the last several years right now. So we had 2 classes that we had to cancel, one due to the government shutdown, and one due to the weather. But we did have 21 people that did come this week, and usually our classes run in size from 20 to 30. We gain people that come from as far as New Hampshire, New Jersey, to take navigation classes. I think there is a genuine concern, and our head of PR is very, very good about marketing the classes, so they're marketed to both people here in Milford and to the surrounding towns, so we do tend to get a pretty good draw. I think there's a lot of interest right now in boating safety, certainly on the news. There's a lot of talk about wearing life jackets, fatalities, both in the paddlecraft and recreational boating. There was incidents here of a couple of fatalities last year. We've had search and rescues here in the harbor. My vice president of our corporation, Patrick Borden, assisted with a demasted sailboat last year in the harbor. So I think people tend to be very, very aware of what's going on right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions for the gentleman, Flotilla 73? Seeing none, thank you very much, Sean, you and your staff, and the great job you're doing on the sound.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is it permissible to ask a question to the board?
Excuse me?
We just wanted to ask one question of you, Mr. Chairman, if it's possible.
Sure.
So we want to thank the city for approving our grant for last year, and we were just wondering when that grant from last year was going to be dispersed, if it was going to. We have not received the money yet.
Mr. Chairman, just to follow up, as they mentioned, they're working through a whole bunch of issues with the city. I know that Julie Nash and Public Works and some other departments are trying to resolve some ongoing issues. It is a new executive board that started just recently. The flotilla fills a good void in terms of education and making sure that everybody that is operating a vessel is certified and educated. I myself, when the law changed in the early 1990s, took a flotilla course with Peter Van Bredero, and have ever since held that license, still have it in my wallet. We will continue to work with the flotilla. As you know, Alderman Vitale, Alderman Anderson did the market analysis, as well as the conservation development that recommends that the flotilla building be relocated just because of the needs that we have down at the harbor. We're working with the folks at the flotilla to see if we could have a viable alternative to keep them in a downtown presence with their mission of education, but at the same time trying to free up that space along the harbor that is, from an economic development standpoint and a downtown development standpoint, a really critical element. Again, about 50 plus years ago, 60 years ago almost, it was a little bit different time back when that property was a sewage treatment plant. Things have changed over the course of the last 60 years so that it requires different spatial needs for the downtown. And right now we are working with the flotilla to come to an agreement on a whole host of issues, including that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Vitale.
Thank you. I'm confused. The answer to the question was, where's the money? And I don't know if you gave an answer.
So the Board of Aldermen last year authorized up to $9,000, just like they authorized set amounts for each of the different departments. We are trying to resolve some of the ongoing issues that we have before the finance department processes that grant allocation.
Ongoing issues, if they, I'm more confused now. The fact is, if part of their grant is to educate, part of the grant is to get the vessel on the water to help patrol the waters, the harbor, how come they didn't get the money? What are the issues that they're not getting the money?
We're trying to work with them to satisfy all of the city's issues, a lot of which came up through your committee, Alderman Vitale, with the market analysis, the $150,000 market analysis that you went through, which suggested or recommended that that building be moved as part of the Downtown Development Committee.
You mean my committee on the agro property committee?
As part of the $150,000 market analysis, downtown market analysis that the Downtown Development Committee processed.
Okay, but that still doesn't answer why they didn't get the money. I mean, the grant was given them last year. How come they didn't get the grant?
We're trying to resolve all the issues with the new executive committee wholesale before the grants are distributed. We do that for all the different departments. We do that through all the different grant agencies. Again, you authorize up to a certain level of money, and then the administration processes that when the issues are resolved.
Did you get any money?
No, sir. We have not received any money at this time.
We're in a different, we're already negotiating another contract. It doesn't make sense.
And we're hoping to resolve those issues before July 1st.
But that might be a different, we already have expenditures of education. They have expenditures of running a boat on the Sound, doing their mission to help the people of Milford, and yet we haven't given them money. It doesn't compute to me.
It is my hope that the issues get resolved in time for that to happen.
You won't disclose what those issues are to get resolved. And it's not they're moving from one building to another, is it?
That's part of the ongoing issues, yes.
But that doesn't preclude the fact that there were still educational classes. There's classes going on that they need to either be compensated for. They came here in good faith and asked for X amount of dollars. We granted them X amount of dollars in the last budget, and they haven't gotten any money. Doesn't make sense.
Alderman Giannatasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. I couldn't agree with Alderman Vitale more, and, you know, just to add to that, one thing has nothing to do with the other. I mean, and they're before us now, you know, requesting another $9,000, and I just think that, you know, best practice is we should allocate them the funds that this body approved and voted on. So as far as what you're doing is you're holding them hostage, and I don't think that's good government. I don't think it's fair, and these people deserve to get paid, so you better tell Peter to cut him a check. Thank you.
Alderman Tranquilli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. So do you have enough funds to make it to July of this year with the classes and with everything that's going on? Or?
I mean, our funding sources are, we have membership dues, we have boating receipts that come in for people who pay to take classes, but that depends. But our big expenses are operating our facility, operating our boat, ordering educational materials. So at some point, we either go into reserves, or at some point, we look for ongoing, you know, outside fundraising, you know, which distracts from our mission, because we'd rather focus on educating the public and doing patrols and not start worrying about, you know, starting to do fundraising, which we can, but we would really hope that we would get the grant from the city to make our life easier and to meet the educational missions and other missions that the Coast Guard Auxiliary does.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alderman.
Alderman Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mayor, I really got to go back to this. We are a governing body. I don't think you have any right to put contingencies on the money that we allocate. If we're going to be giving a grant, the grant was voted in and should have been given by this time. I mean, maybe Peter can answer any of this. I mean, we're not running out of money, but I don't know how you can stop that grant from going through when we already approved it. It just doesn't, there's a layer missing here. It's not transparency, because I haven't heard what we needed to do and why this money was being held up. We said yes to this. We voted on this, and then you're saying you're not going to allow it to go through. I need real good explanation for that. I really do.
Mr. Chairman, as you know, for each of the departments, each of the grant agencies, the Board of Ed is a little bit different because there's state statutes that specify, specific ways to allocate money. But for each of the departments, you authorize an amount up to the $9,000 based on the administration's handling of each of those dollar figures. You entrust the Finance Department and the Mayor's office to make sure that the money that you authorize is allocated appropriately. And that's pursuant to our charter, that's pursuant to state statute. So you are authorizing an amount up to, in this case, $9,000. As you know, back when the flotilla was first initiated, back after World War II, it was an organization that was almost exclusively, if not exclusively, made up of Milford residents. Since then, the Milford residents are few and far between. It's not necessarily a community-based organization. It's an organization that still does perform a good service in terms of the education of our boaters, but it is a different organization than it was initially conceived back when Alan Jepson was the commander in the 1960s. These are things that have changed. One of the things that your board has asked of my office, and the residents have asked, and the voters have asked, is to make sure that we are all rowing in the same direction. I'm trying to ensure that we are not gunkoing about in a sea of confusion, that we are all rowing in the same direction on this issue before we move forward with the funding.
But historically, how many years have we been granting the flotilla the money?
Probably since Alan Jepson was the mayor and the commander of the flotilla.
You're talking 30 years, 40 years, 50 years ago? And so all of a sudden, 6-8 months later, if we go retrospect, that 6 months ago, you decided to hold up a check. How do we pay them anyway? Quarterly? Do we write a check out quarterly? So why haven't they received something? Something in the past for the first, second quarters? That's what I can't understand. I mean, if there's a stalemate at this point, I don't even know where the stalemate is, because we're going to secure property down there to build something for more attractions and more of what we already have. We're going to make it so economically more viable, and these people have served a service to this. You've got a harbor commission, you've got all of these other commissions, and I just can't understand of the up to $9,000. Why wouldn't we have given them $4,000 already? I mean, what held it up from day one, last July 1st? It's a question.
Without being redundant, again, we have issues to resolve. I just reviewed those issues with you before, there's an allocation of funding for the flotilla.
But that was last July 1st? It started last July 1st?
We started before last July 1st.
But we never made...
It's my hope, and again, if you want to go through the potential legal issues, I would ask that you go into executive session.
May make that request then. Thank you.
Alderman Vecchiarelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, sir.
I haven't seen your budget. I just know that we give you a grant for these monies. But I'm wondering, in your operating budget, are there funds that are designated for the maintenance, upkeep, and so forth of the building? And I wonder, maybe if there are, if you're going to be vacating it, then I'm wondering if maybe that could be, something that the mayor would maybe hold off, because he doesn't want you putting money into the building if you're going to come to some kind of an agreement to move out of there. So I guess the question is in your operating budget, do you have items, line items that are specifically for the building itself? And if you do, I'm wondering how much it might be for.
We do have a budget. So the expenses that we have to pay for the building are, we have our heat, our electricity for ongoing operations. We have to pay insurance on that building, which is rather expensive. And we have to do that because we welcome the public into our facilities. We have to pay for telephone service as well. So there are a lot of fixed costs that are associated with that building.
Okay, thank you. I too, I think, would like to say that, you know, we did give you the grant to do what you needed to do, and I would like to see that given to you as soon as possible. I know the mayor he has some kind of circumstances there, but I hope that can certainly be resolved quickly. You guys do a real good service for the city. Proud to see and have you there with us. And so we did give you this money, and would like to see you get it as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Majority. I appreciate that. And just want to mention also, so a lot of the new members that are coming in are members of Milford. All three of us here, we live in Milford. We're getting more and more Milford members. Maybe it's about a third of our membership, but the Coast Guard Auxiliary welcomes people from all over. The fact is that we're here serving the community of Milford, and it's actually more impressive when you have people, because they know that this is the best flotilla in many of the surrounding states. We have members who drive down from Massachusetts to be part of the Milford flotilla. We go do events in other places, and we bring Milford's good name. So we have a reputation, and we're making the city shine as well. We really want to be good partners in negotiating with the city. The whole idea, we are willing to negotiate, to relocate. We understand where the city's going with the terms of economic development. We want to be partners to that. But we also have to be able to meet our ongoing missions for education, for training our membership, and that requires a dedicated space that we have control over. So just the idea that we're going to get up and go walk away is not going to happen, unless we can find a solution that works for the city and for the flotilla, where both parties wind up being made whole and it's mutually beneficial to all. But we do appreciate enormously what the city has done for us, and we want to maintain our relationship with the city and be good partners with the city going forward.
Alderman Tranquilli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you to the mayor. Mayor Blake, are there any other departments that haven't gotten funds from last year's budget, or is this just an isolated situation?
Any money? No departments that I know of have utilized all the funds that have been authorized. I'm not sure whether or not all of the grant agencies have been issued. Actually, I know that at least a couple have not been issued their annual grant yet, but a lot of them wait till the end of the fiscal year just because that's their tradition.
Thank you.
Alderman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have to agree with my colleagues. In my time on the board, I've never encountered a situation where an agency or a department has not received their funds. But maybe I'm just not aware of how some of this is dispersed. If I could, Mr. Chairman, ask the finance director. Peter, how do disbursements, when we vote on this, how do we disperse these funds? Is it happen at the beginning of the fiscal year in July? Is it done in increments? How's it actually paid out?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Alderman Smith, there is no hard and fast rule for every single grant, but normally the pattern is some grants are given their allocation once a year annually, some take a quarterly payment, some twice a year, and the timing can vary.
And Milford Flotilla, I would think, is a rather modest sum, would probably take, $9,000 would be issued in a check to them at one time.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Alderman Smith, yes, historically, the flotilla has been a one-time annual payment.
Thank you, Peter. I think I sense that the mayor has certain latitude in terms of, has an executive matter which apparently might not be appropriate for discussion at this budget hearing. I mean, if it were necessary, Mr. Mayor, could we convene an executive session to explain why this is the case? I'm not petitioning that we do that tonight, but that if it's if it's the opinion of the rest of the board, we could meet in executive session to get a fuller understanding of what's going on. Because obviously we're going through the process. We recognize the great service of the Milford Flotilla, have no problem with what their budget submittal is, so I don't see, there must be something that we could find out in executive session to satisfy some of the questions that were answered here tonight.
Absolutely. As you heard, there's ongoing negotiations of which are appropriate for executive session.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Alderman Smith. Thank you, gentlemen, for answering all our questions, and thanks again for all.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Alderman Giannatasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, just to follow up on what Alderman Smith mentioned, when do you usually receive that payment?
Historically, it's usually been around 1 July. Is that, I just want to turn to my former past commander. Is that correct, Bob? Okay, that would be usually around the beginning of July, historically.
Okay, and you currently lease the building from the city, is that correct?
We have the city owns the land, and we're leasing the land from the city for $1 a year, and we own the building on the property.
Okay. Well, I can say I'm not comfortable with the current situation. I'm actually, a little embarrassed. I've never, like Alderman Smith said, this is the first for me. I've never had a situation where someone hasn't been funded after it's been voted on. So, I hope that you do come to some kind of an agreement, but I don't think that this should continue on any longer. And I hope by us meeting tonight, that the mayor recognizes that he should at least give you the funding that's due. Because otherwise, us here tonight talking about future funding really, to me, is a waste of time. So until you get what's owed, I think that then we can talk about, the future. And I appreciate your patience with the city. It does mean a lot, and, there's better days ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And once again, thank you very much for answering all our questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the Board of Aldermen. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Next department on the agenda will be Cemetery Association. Is there anyone here from the Cemetery Association? Mr. Mayor, is there any questions pertaining to the Cemetery Association? Seeing none, we'll move on to Community Development. And I see Julie's here. Good evening, Mrs. Mash.
Good evening. Julie Nash, Director of Economic Development.
Page 20 for anyone that's looking for the department.
So we've had a successful year again, and I'm proud that we continue to improve on our business growth. Our budget last year, it's always a little tight with the amount of events and things that we do in the city. And this year, I did ask for an increase. And that increase, I can talk a little bit about that, is the past year and a half or two, have been working on tourism and kind of boosting that in the city. And the increase is due to the tourism website launch that we're going to do in May. And behind that, we really want to put on a great social media campaign. So I think without a good social media campaign, we won't get the reach that we really want and want people to see it and come visit our town and visit the businesses and the tourism businesses here that are doing a lot of good work for us. For every dollar spent in tourism, there's a multiplying effect, and that becomes $3, and that's generated into our economy. So I think all the work that many of our organizations here are doing in town will really benefit from having some more tourism in town. So that is the reason for the budget increase.
Thank you, Julie. Is there any questions for the community development? Alderman Vitale.
Good evening, Julie.
Good evening.
Just help me understand something. Office equipment upkeep for $970. What equipment in the office needs to be upkept?
So we have 6 computers, and they range anywhere from 5 years to 20 years old. And as part of that, we upgrade one computer each year, and we add the Microsoft Office, which is, I think, $340 or something. So it's for computers.
Is that computer able to handle the upgrades?
The new one that we got does. And sometimes we'll get a used one and we'll get a new one, but we have to add on the new software.
So out of that 970 is a new computer, or where's the new computer?
It's both. The software and the computer.
For that 970?
Correct.
Thank you.
Alderman Gurman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Julie, how are you?
How are you?
Can you give us a little background or summary on the state of Milford as far as the commercial environment, maybe businesses, net gains or losses or whatever it is? It seems like I've been driving down the Post Road lately and there's more and more empty space versus, a lot of new stuff. So just,
Sure.
New businesses come in versus, businesses that are leaving type of thing.
So we use the business starts, which is generated by the Secretary of State, and that's what the benchmark is, what most municipalities, well, all municipalities use. And luckily for us, that number does keep going up. Let me could tell you the latest. 2018 was 467, and prior to that, 2017 was 439. 2016 was 400, and 2015 was 378. So we use that number as an economic growth generator. We look at, it could be anything from construction, it could be a new business, it could be an expansion. There's a multitude of items that go under that number, but we use it as growth. So if it goes up, that means all of those categories are also going up. It's the number that we've always used, so I'm happy that it keeps going up. I think probably our biggest challenge in Milford right now is office space. And that's a challenge throughout the state of Connecticut because people just don't work the same as they used to. A lot of people are working from cars and offices and co-sharing spaces, which is a pretty big deal right now. So things are changing, and we've been trying to work with Wheelers Farm Road folks and maybe possibly turning those to co-sharing or something like that. And I know other people have been working on co-sharing spaces. So I think from the business growth side and looking at the economic growth and the benchmarks, they keep going up. So that's a good thing. But we do have to focus on offices. We do have to focus on some of the turnover downtown, and we're definitely working on those as well. But it's cyclical. I mean, these things, Amazon effect, a lot of times on the Post Road is what's happening. We try to advise the businesses in town to make sure that if you're just retail, to make sure there's an experience along with it. That seems to be helping retail because Amazon just doesn't offer the experience that you do when you walk into a store. So I don't know if you noticed some of the, like Duck Duck Goose, for instance. They have story time there. They have Mommy's Day Out. They have things like that. So it's getting people in the stores. They get that experience they're not getting at Amazon. But the bigger retail on the Post Road hasn't been able to really do that. And then you look at the mall, and the mall, all the expansion of the mall, again, is experiences. It's Dave & Buster's. It's the new wine and art place. All different types of things like that. So that's kind of where things are trending.
Thank you.
Any more? Oh, Alderman Giannatasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you. Good evening, Julie. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Julie, how many people makes up your department?
I have one part-time, she works 4 hours a day, and that's it. And then I have the CDBG coordinator, but that's paid by a grant. And that's all I have. I'd like to have it more, but
Is the coordinator full-time?
she's 4 hours a day.
So is that the same person? Or you have a?
The CDBG coordinator is a community development block grant coordinator, and she's paid by a grant and works on dispersing those funds and managing those funds for the city. It's a federal block grant. It's about $500,000, and she takes care of that. So we just did, last week, went through the whole, how is that money going to be dispersed? And generally, it's dispersed through our nonprofits in town. We're a low to moderate income city. We're one of 12 in the state of Connecticut. So we are able to still get that grant, and that is paid for through the grant. But through the city, it is myself and one part-time person.
And the clerk is 4 hours?
Each day, correct.
Okay. And to follow up, Mr. Chairman, I do have a question, being that you are the Economic Development Director for our city. In your opinion, do you feel where the flotilla is, that that's a best use for a restaurant, and why?
Thanks. Okay, so just to give a little bit of background on this, we got a $150,000 grant. It came before you guys, I think about probably 3 or 4 years ago at this point. And the grant was for a transit-oriented development study. So transit-oriented development is a 1-mile radius from your main transit, which is the train station. So that area is involved too. So and Alderman Vitale can kind of speak to this too, and Alderman Anderson, but you look at every single space in that 1-mile radius and say, what could it be? Is it underutilized? Should we, what kind of retail do we need? That space was identified as a space that is being underutilized from an economic development standpoint. And I would be the first to say the flotilla does a great job, and we have actually a very good relationship, and we are just talking through the process. But I would not be doing my job well if I did not go through each recommendation and do my due diligence to see, is this going to work? Is this something that would be appropriate? And it's not just that, it's many different things. The Planters Downtown was from the BL transit-oriented development as well. So a lot of things spawn from these, which is good. We can make updates and upgrades, and so yeah, I think I have to look at that as a possibility, and I think when they brought that up and they showed it to me it was a no-brainer. I thought, wow, this would be amazing. We have all these boaters coming in, 1,500 unique boaters each summer, and to have a on-the-water facility for them to enjoy when they came to Milford. And we have 17 miles of shoreline, we have all these wonderful things, and we don't have a place for our boaters to sit on the water at this point. So I just thought it was something I really needed to look into. I think it would be great if it works out, but I've been very clear with the flotilla from the beginning. If it doesn't, that's okay too.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'm just trying to understand, because I know that, to Alderman Gurman's point, he mentioned the Post Road, but I know downtown specifically, that area, there's a lot of vacancies, and there's restaurants that have opened and closed, and for the city, you know, to get involved in this type of project, being that it's a restaurant, you know, the restaurant business is a high-risk business to begin with. So I understand the fact that the boats are coming in, and they are coming in, and it's just a matter of walking up the hill, crossing the bridge, and, you know, using the restaurants that already exist. So I hope it works out, you know, that's my hope, but I don't know if me as an investor, or, you know, maybe someone in your position, I don't know if, you know, it's gonna be a slam dunk. And I guess time will tell, but I do have some reservations about that.
And I agree. I mean, I wouldn't do anything that wasn't in the best interest of the city of Milford. So if we move forward and it looks like it will not be, then it won't happen. But we're at the very, very beginning stages of saying, could this happen? Who's interested? We have a list of people who are interested in being a part of it. We're just at the very, very beginning stages. And in each stage, I will thoroughly investigate and make sure that we are making the right move. Again, I would never do anything that was not in the best interest of the city of Milford. So I'll work with the flotilla closely, and hopefully we get to an agreement. If we don't, and it doesn't pan out, and trajectory doesn't look good, then it's a project that we don't do. Maybe I'll look somewhere else in the shoreline, see if there's something else. But, you know, sitting on the water is an experience that we don't have down there, and I just think it would really be a great enhancement to downtown. But thank you for your reservations. I think we all are in the same boat. We want to make sure that we're making the right decisions for the city.
Thank you, I appreciate it, thanks.
Alderman Vecchiarelli.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a point of order. I don't want to be the stick in the mud here, but these questions really have nothing to do with our budget hearing. There's nothing to do with these line items. If there's, you know, discussion on what we're going to put in place of the Coast Guard building, we can certainly put that on our regular monthly agenda and for
Mr.
discussion.
Chairman, point of order. Historically,
wait a minute.
when
I
people come
have
before
asked for a point
the
of
Board of
order.
Aldermen for
I
a
have the
budget,
floor.
we ask for an
I
update,
have the
okay?
floor.
So don't
I
start
didn't
telling me
interrupt you.
that we've
I
never
have
had
the
these discussions
floor.
before.
I
I don't
have
care
the
if you have
floor.
the floor. What do you think of
Well,
that?
I have the floor, so be nice. In
5-minute
fact,
recess.
I tried to be nice about this.
Mr. Chair, can I
but
have a
you're
recess?
sitting over there
Can I
and
have a
you're
recess?
asking a question about things that have nothing
Taking
to
a
do with our
recess.
budget.
We're in recess right now.
So I would appreciate it if you would continue your questioning in regard to the budget. If you need to ask her these questions, give her a call. She's there every day.
Julie, you have anything more to add for the community development?
No, thank you.
You're all set? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Alderman Anderson.
I do have a question I'd like to ask the director.
Go ahead. You're on.
Relative to your economic development area. One area that has a tendency to get overlooked is our industrial sector, which is quite strong, actually. I live adjacent to Pepe's Farms Road. There are many different industrial locations throughout the city. Most of those buildings are fully occupied, vital, taxpayers. And I wondered if you could share something on that, number one. And number two, there has been an increase in the number of events held for which you are directly responsible, along with Dan Worrell to some extent. And I wondered if you would touch on some of the activities and the impact that that's had on your department, because you know, there are so many offerings that are available to Milford residents now that wasn't the case even 2 years ago. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Alderman Anderson. So industrial sector, yes, all of that is correct. It's one of our strongest sectors. Healthcare, manufacturing, and retail are our top 3 industry sectors in the city of Milford. Retail being number 1, manufacturing and healthcare closely following. And it is robust. We're lucky. We do have manufacturers calling to find new spaces in the city. And one of the things I hate most about my job is not being able to find them a space. So sometimes I do have to work with other towns to try and help and locate businesses. But yeah, we don't have a lot of manufacturing space, and interestingly, New Haven doesn't have a lot of manufacturing space, so they'll send people to us sometimes as well, and a lot of times they have very specific needs, but it's, you're right, the Pepe's Farm Road area is great, and last year I made it a point as part of my business retention program to go every Tuesday, and I walked to every single business in the industrial sector along Pepe's Farm Road and back through Woodmont Road in that area. And it was such a pleasure every Tuesday. And if anyone wants to join me, I generally do that on Tuesdays, but it was great. I mean, I heard nothing but good things about the city. They've been in business for 25 years. I've enjoyed being here. Everybody, as you can, the surveys we do and talk to people when we go there, it's always the same thing, taxes and utilities. But as far as the community and how they're supported, they're all very fond of Milford. And then as far as the events, yes, we have a lot of events. And one of the things and one of the reasons behind tourism and behind the events that I do, interestingly, when the larger companies left Connecticut, one of the items that they had cited as to why they left was because there was nothing to do. They felt like, I think it was, and I want to say names, but one of them said, I don't want to look out my back window at a deer all day. So I thought, well, I don't want a company to leave here and say there's nothing to do. And that's certainly not the case. They're looking for vibrant cities, and I want us to be a vibrant city. So when people come here, they want to live here, they want to work here, they want their business to be here, and there's no one's going to be saying they're looking at deers all day, because we certainly have a packed calendar.
Thank you, Mrs. Nash. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Any more questions we're still under community development. Alderman Gurman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you to Julie. Can you just explain or just announce to the viewing public the kickoff to the tourism website and strategy, I guess?
Sure. So when we started working on tourism I think it's about 2 or 3 years ago, we made a list of all the things we need to do. We need to make relationships with the tourism partners in the city. We need to have a cohesive place where people can find all the events and all of the businesses in the city that deal with tourism. And obviously a website was one of the things that we identified. And we interviewed several different companies, and I thought one of the most interesting things that one of the companies did was they acted as a visitor to the city of Milford. And they pulled up every single page and they put it on a PowerPoint. So every single page that had anything to do with Milford, Walnut Beach Business Association or Scoot and Paddle, and it was, nothing was branded the same. They're all lovely websites, but it just, if I was a tourist, it was just too busy. There was no real way you can find everything. So it was clear we needed to create a website. So May 7th, we will launch our discovermilfordct.com website that will host all of the events. It will host gorgeous pictures. We did a call to artists for the photographers in Milford, and we have the most unbelievable photography to populate the site with. We are lucky to be able to work with Rob Kerfis, who is our site designer. He is a graphic artist that lives in the city of Milford. He offered his time at a very small expense in comparison to the website folks that we had spoken with before. He actually came to me, sorry, I don't want to take up too much time, but this is an interesting story. When I first came to the city, Rob sent me a PowerPoint that he created on his own without any sort of ask from the city, and it was so comprehensive and so beautiful, and I said, oh my gosh, we have to do this, and that became our blue sailboat, Milford, Connecticut, that we use everywhere now. That was Rob. So Rob, again, is helping us out in creating the city site. It's going to be beautiful. We worked in partnership with the Milford Progress to create the site. We worked in partnership with the Tourism Task Force, and on the Tourism Task Force, we're lucky again to have several hotels that are part of it. And they have been creating packages with our businesses that we'll focus on the website as well. So when people look in the city of Milford, they go to the Hampton Inn, they can partner with Scoot and Paddle, there's a whole package that people are coming for the city now. They're partnering with Page and the Arts Council. So it's pretty comprehensive. I think it's going to be we're putting a branding piece, and all of the tourism websites will be able to put a piece of that branding on their website as well. So it's very cohesive when people look and to see what there is to do with Milford. And as part of our launch, we have several different iconic Milford businesses that coming to donate their time. So I think it's going to be really fun. It won't be too long, just a quick evening to see what the Discover Milford website will look like, and hopefully it's very successful.
Thank you very much.
Any more questions regarding community development? Seeing none, we'll move right on to Economic Development Commission. Julie?
I have $1, I think. We have not asked for an increase. But, I can't say enough about my Economic Development Commission, though. They are incredibly supportive. They work really hard. They've taken on a lot this year in regards to supporting new businesses and testifying at hearings and on their behalf. So I'm lucky to have a great commission.
Anybody on the board would like to comment or question Economic Development Commission? Seeing none, thank you very much, Julie.
Thank you.
Thank you for answering all of our questions. The next department on the agenda is the Boys and Girls Club.
Mr. Chairman, I don't see Megan Altamari or any of the board members there. I'm happy to answer questions. I actually did have a meeting with the Boys and Girls Club today, or at least Jorge Santiago, who's one of the folks on the executive board. I'm happy to answer questions or ask that they come back at a later point if you have questions that can't be asked this evening.
Alderman Gurman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you to the mayor. Can we just have them reschedule? Because I'd really like to ask them a lot of questions.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So we'll just reschedule the Boys and Girls Club, and we'll go on to the next department head, Veterans Ceremony and Parade Commission.
And Mr. Chairman, through you again, I did have a conversation today with Tom Flowers, who's the chairman of the VCPC, earlier today. He is also the national commander for the American Legion. I do know that he was going to Rocky Hill at some point today, just because of our conversation. I don't know if that is a conflict with tonight's agenda or not, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any of the board members have any questions for Veterans Ceremony and Parade Commission? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll move on to Public Library.
And I'm sorry, Tom Flowers is the state commander, not the national commander.
Thank you. Public Library. It's page 35 on your books.
Good evening. I'm Chris Angeli, the Director of the Public Library. And I just wanted to thank you for having me here tonight to talk about the budget on what is the start of National Library Week. I want to thank Mayor Blake for issuing a proclamation as such that it is Milford Public Library Week and allowing City Hall to be lit up gold to recognize that fact. So thank you very much. I was ready to talk about everything that's going on in the library. I think maybe I'll keep it a little shorter and talk about our budget. I'll backtrack a little. The theme of National Library Week this year is libraries equal strong communities, and it is something that I have fervently believed in, really in my whole career. I don't believe that our library is a collection of materials that we have, but it is the partnerships and the community connections that we make, and it has been a very strong focus of mine and my staff throughout this past year, and it is something that, as I was preparing my budget, that I really looked as a guide. So I'm putting in front of you a budget that has really no increase. I think it's 0.2%. But what I have done is just reallocate some of the funding that we have gotten in the past to allow us to do more service and community action events. I also do not want to be remiss in mentioning the fact that the city budget here provides for our materials, our facility, some services, and our staff. But without the continued support of the Friends of the Library, we really would not be able to do all that we do at the, for the community. They are invaluable, and they allow us to keep our municipal spending down. So I just wanted to make sure that it goes on record that very, very appreciative of all their efforts. Some statistics. I'm a words person, but I'll give you some numbers. The public library in fiscal year 18, we saw 160,000 visitors to the library. We had 254,000 items checked out. We had 25,000 registered card holders in the community, and the bulk of those are Milford residents. We have a 46% Milford residents have library cards. It's an amazing number. We had 600 programs for children, teens, and adults. We had 19,000 people attend those programs. We are an active building, partnering with our community to provide resources and information. And we also had 18,000 computer sessions. So people who say that, you know, everybody's got the internet in their pocket, it's just not true. Just as a snapshot, for the month of April, we have either partnered with or will be partnering with the Milford Prevention Council, the Rec Department's Benson Crump Community Gardens Project, the Poet Laureate here in Milford, the Milford chapter of Moms Demand Action, Milford Speaks Out, the Connecticut chapter of NOW, the Small Business Association, Milford Alive, the Board of Ed's 5th-year vocational experience program, Bethel, the Literacy Center, Milestones Behavioral, Milford's Promise, the Police Department, the Disabled Veterans, Connecticut Coalition to End Homelessness, and more. We're a very active and strong community resource for the funding that we get. In the past 10 years, we've seen a 109% increase in the number of programs we offer, 79% program attendance increase in those past 10 years. We've seen a 9% municipal appropriation increase in the same time period. So we do a lot with very little, and we do a lot with community support. So, you know, I could talk all day about the library, but I see that we're full of questions this evening, so I'm happy to answer some. But I also don't want to leave without remembering to say and to invite all of you to come visit the library, those of you that are not active users. I'd love to show you around. I'd love to show you our resources, both in-house and online, and show you what really a good deal and a good resource this is for the community. So I'm happy to answer questions.
Alderman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have a question. I am, along with Alderman Grant, one of the 2 aldermanic liaisons to the Milford Public Library, and I yield to no one in my admiration for Mrs. Angeli and all that she does at the library. What she didn't mention is she was very instrumental in securing a grant through the state library late last year, which is going to the expansion of the children's library. The Milford Public Library is undergoing a renaissance, and so many things, so many positive things are happening there, which I attribute in large part to the great work of our director. We would be remiss in not mentioning the Friends of the Library that do so much that you see in the library, doing book sales and other things to bring money and materials to the library. And the reason that the Friends of the Library is as successful as it is because the administration of the library does such a fine job in running the day-to-day operations. And as I said, obviously not just Chris, but the other members of her staff there that do so much every day. Chris touched on a little bit the fact that the library is not just a repository of books and reading materials. It is truly a community center. And despite the fact that we have electronic media these days and internet, the library, ironically and paradoxically, is more involved in community relations. There are so many things, as Chris pointed out. They collaborate with the school district, with the police department, with Bethel, with just about every major department organization within the city of Milford. And I thank and applaud Chris for her fine work. Just a quick anecdote, because I don't know if you necessarily want to talk about this, but we had a meeting on Monday, and it was brought up that one of the local radio stations had picked up on a story of an unfortunate incident that happened on St. Patrick's Day when a patron was asked to leave the library, and used it as part of their shtick to kind of poke fun at. I don't think it was meant in any malicious way, but it certainly didn't reflect well on the library. And Chris, to her credit, thought that it deserved some type of response. It was on Monday or Tuesday when she was interviewed by the DJs at WPLR. But if you listen to which I just did, a tape of that interview with Chris, she shows why she has such great tact and skill, and graciously and in a very humorous way was able to address some of the concerns and more or less defend the library as a place where all people are welcome. It has been an extremely difficult time this past year with some of the homeless population that are centered in that area. And I've said at the library board meeting, Chris has been particularly very humane, very respectful, and yet very effective in addressing some of these concerns without taking some popular or rash type of action. She works very well with the police department, but also with the people involved, and made me proud to be part of the city of Milford, to see how she handled a number of these issues over the past several months, which are common to all libraries. The homeless people in public libraries is a nationwide issue, not just confined to the city of Milford, but it has come up from time to time. And again, Chris, I just want to applaud the way you handled it so tactfully, so humanely, and so respectfully as a head of the department of the city of Milford. We're lucky to have you there. I hope people do come to the library to see some of the new things that have happened there. And I know you do it every year with about the same amount of money, and this has been, I think, your fourth year now, as you're starting your fourth year as a director. So
I'm actually going into my sixth.
Sixth year. See,
Yeah, fifth completed, yeah.
Time flies.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Chris.
Thank you for the kind words. I have an excellent staff, a wonderful supportive library board, and a great friends group, so thank you.
Alderman Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Hello, Chris. And I echo everything that Alder Smith said, because you and your staff and the Friends do such an amazing job to take and make the library what it is. and you very eloquently spoke about the library and all of the benefits it does. But I mean, some of the statistics that you pointed out are just astonishing. 160,000 visitors to the library is amazing in our small city. Having 600 programs with only 52 weeks a year is unbelievable. The amount of people that can come in and out of the library, just the way that our residents utilize it as a part of their daily lives, and especially the way that families and children utilize the library is just going to grow and be even better with the expansions. So definitely, please, you and your staff, keep doing the great work, and thank you very much for all that you do.
Thank you.
Alderman Beatty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, and thank you, Chris. There isn't much more I can add to that. And I remember the conversations from other years and robust discussions. You have educated us and the public, and I wonder, last year we talked about programming, in particular the children's programming, and how successful it was. How many children, how many visits, how many librarians you use. And you did mention that you would expand that, and that it sounded, of course, that you have this vision and strategic plan in your head, and that you would expand that if you had personnel to handle the desks and some of the more mundane tasks. So where is the ask? I guess I want to say I hear this, I won't reiterate the number of visits, the type and quality, the connections to other city agencies, to the people. So how can you continue to do that, and what is the plan for this flat budget? I expected you to come back this year from what you said last year at the budget hearing with asking for more capacity. I don't know whether that was funding or more capacity in order to continue the program. And maybe you can educate us as to why that isn't.
Sure. I think being a good steward of the municipal funds is really taking a look at every dollar we spend. If you take a look at the budget, I've done a number of shifting around of where the funds are being spent, and a lot of that is because of renegotiated contracts. It is because of joining consortial groups that get us discounts. So I think what I've been really trying to do is be as conservative as I can on the the side of the library operations that is not public oriented, and taking those savings and putting them elsewhere. Many of the programs that we do, we bring in speakers and we bring in people of knowledge, so that has been a great assistance for us. Many of those speakers are paid for by the funds raised by our Friends of the Library group, not by the city, and their work is increasing as well, so we're getting more money on that end to provide for some more of these speakers. With our expansion, the children's room will grow in size. I am not asking for more staff at this time. I had asked for an increase in our seasonal temp budget, which is our part-time staff. And historically, what we have had is we've had a large number of people on that roster. I'm looking to make it more, less people with more hours who have more of a connection and who can take on more responsibilities rather than just filling in shifts. We have a number of great new hires in our seasonal temp staff that are anxious and eager to take on some new community outreach roles. So I'd like to see how much we can do with what we have, and then come back and make the ask when I feel that that's really what we need.
Anyone else have any questions for the library? Alderman Gaynor.
Hi, Chris. As a former board member as well, I know that there was some conversation for a while about creating the coffee shop there. And I just wanted to highlight how wonderful it is, I think, that you have partnered with, is it City Perks?
It is called City Perks,
City Perks. Yep. And highlight that you were able to partner with another city group that serves so many people. So thank you.
Thank you. It was a great partnership. It is something that we are still looking to expand. That was a conversation we had a while ago, and it was brought back to my attention by Joanne Rohrig, who kind of facilitated a move again. But for those of you that don't know, we have the Board of Education's 5th-year vocational experience program, now running a coffee service and snack business at the library called City Perks. It's a great group of kids. It's a great experience for them, and I think it's actually a great experience for the people in the library in having this interaction with these kids. It's a great program.
Alderman Gurman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. I don't know if you have any demand for maybe a bigger venue over at the Parsons. They have the auditorium over there, has a huge screen for viewing, showing any kind of events for kids or whatever. But I just wanted to throw that out there if you're looking to expand or you need a bigger venue for some reason. That's very underutilized space over there. It'd be nice to have somebody use it.
Well, thank you. We'll definitely,
often.
thank you. We'll definitely keep it in mind. We have used a few other city facilities for some of our programs, but that's definitely something to keep in mind. Thank you for the idea.
Any more questions for the library? Alderman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one last thing, and I'm sorry to come in twice here, but just one quick question, Chris. You mentioned 46% Milford Library card holders. That's 46%
of residents.
Of the residents. It isn't 46% of the card holders are from Milford. It's 46% of all
Milford
the residents
have a library card.
men, women, and children.
That's
That
very
is
high.
extraordinary when I think about it. What would be like another town, maybe not so well represented? It's normally in the 20s, maybe.
Yeah, I hate to give out a figure without knowing it specifically, but at my prior position in Middletown, if I recall correctly, it was hovering around 30, and that was pretty good. That included Wesleyan students.
That's wonderful.
So-
I think that's an important statistic.
Yeah,
and
it
I
definitely
appreciate bringing
is.
that up. Thank you.
Alderman
And if you aren't
Fortunati.
part of that 46%, please come down.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Just want to echo the comments up here extolling all the things that you do for the library. I love our library. I'm in there frequently. The staff is, I think, probably the best part. Everyone there is
I
so
agree. Thank
welcoming
you.
and knowledgeable and helpful. And I'm sorry if I missed this. Did you say when the construction was going to begin on the new children's department and when you anticipated it to be complete?
It has not yet gone out to bid. The architect's contract was just signed by the mayor last week, and that process is now moving forward.
And how long, do you have any idea as to how long the construction phase will take?
I don't. In conversations with the purchasing agent, a lot depended on the size of the firm that gets the bid and what their timetable will be.
And will you have to close off part of the children's department while that happens?
Most likely, yes. Again, that is going to be decided by, in conjunction with the firm that gets the bid project and what they can do in stages. For those of you that don't know, the project will include taking what is currently our garage and enclosing that and turning it into part of the children's department, as well as reclaiming some staff space in the back. So there is some talk that it could be done in stages where we can keep the children's department partially open. But again, I don't know that for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions for the library account? I just want to thank you publicly, Chris, on the help that you're giving Marco, our 8th grade student
He's
that's
awesome,
working
yeah.
on his Eagle project. That's quite a project, and I know that he appreciates all the help that you're giving to make that job
It's
complete.
been a pleasure working with him. Yeah.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
The next department on our agenda will be Park, Beach, and Recreation Commission, page 31.
Good evening. Paul Piscatelli, Director of Recreation. I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding the Parks, Beach, and Recreation budget, the Recreation Department budget, and Also, the Golf Course Commission, unfortunately, Commissioner Worrell could not be here this evening.
So on the Park, Beach, and Recreation Commission, anyone have any questions? Seeing none, we'll go on to the Recreation Department. Anyone having any questions pertaining to the Recreation Department? And last but not least, the golf course account. Anyone having any questions for the golf course? Alderman Gurman.
Excuse me, Chairman, you're moving way too quick here. Can we back up to the Recreation Department?
Sure.
Good evening, Paul.
Good evening.
Can you share with us any big developments coming up this year within the Recreation Department? Or renovations or et cetera?
Mr. Chairman, through you to Alderman Gurman. The Recreation Department and the Public Works Department is continuing to upgrade many of our existing recreation facilities. As you know, last year we finished the pickleball courts and the splash pad at Eisenhower Park. This year we're continuing with some improvements at Eisenhower Park, including the dog park, which should open in the end of May. Additional improvements to a foot field and some parking there as well. With the bond money that you approved back in February, we're also looking to continue renovating many of the playgrounds in town that are outdated, and there's also some additional basketball courts located in those playgrounds at different parkettes around town that will be resurfaced as well. And our indoor facilities, a couple of them are getting facelifts just to clean them up a little bit and get them, with the newer technology, newer equipment.
Thank you.
Alderman Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mr. Piscatelli. Paul, in years past, you've always expressed a concern about what would happen in the event that there is an increase in the minimum wage. There may very well be one this year, and I wondered how your budget reflects it.
Mr. Chairman, through you to Alderman Anderson. That subject of the minimum wage increase was not really on the front burner when our budget process began many months ago. That's why you'll see the small increase of just $5,000 in there. If minimum wage is to increase, I would hope that it would be implemented one over a few years rather than a 48% jump all at one time, because I don't know how we could sustain that to our seasonal temporary account. I think if it was to go up to $11, which I believe is the discussions now on as of January 1st, that we'd be able to get through our summer months, which are the busiest months. As you may remember, we spend about 76% of our seasonal money in 6 weeks, commencing on July 1st. So I'm not fearful of our summer activities suffering, but we would have to be creative when it came down to our indoor activities, which we're always doing to try to make things more efficient. But there would be a good possibility that I would have to come back to the board for additional funds if that was the case. I'm comfortable with the $5,000 that's in here for this year, but going forward, a 48% increase would really be a significant hit to not only my budget but those other seasonal accounts here in Milford.
Thanks for sharing that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Good evening, Paul.
Good evening.
Just want to say, all the stuff that's happening around the city is really great. It looks great, and things are happening. People can't complain about recreating because obviously the opportunities are there to do just that. If you could help me understand something, the other day, I think I saw it in Patch, and I don't know if I misinterpreted it, that the area between Eisenhower and Foot, the parking lot that's going in there, was that job or work suspended because of lack of permitting, or getting the permits possible for the inland wetlands? Did I misunderstand that in Patch, or can you enlighten me or elaborate on that?
Mr. Chairman, through you to Alderman Vitale. That would be a question to pose to the Public Works Director. I'm not familiar with how that permit process was being handled.
It's not the permit process, but did the job shut down because it wasn't permitting? I don't know. That's what Pat said. I don't know if I misinterpreted or misunderstood it. Mr. Mayor, can you add anything?
I can't confirm or deny any of that. The days I've been by there, I've seen activity going on. Have I been by there every day? Certainly not, so I can't really comment on, what the time frame of that would be.
Mr. Chairman, through you to Alderman Vitale, you're welcome to ask our Public Works Director for more specifics, but that particular project, it goes all the way back to the 2006 plan that was put forth for Eisenhower Park, but that particular improvement to the park, it has been all permitted, and other than the weather being an issue and various personnel and contractors, I don't think that there was any specific stops.
Yeah, I wasn't questioning the ETA of the project or the estimated time of completion, but I was just, I thought I had read it, and maybe I misunderstood that because there was lack of permitting, or we went ahead and did work without permitting, the job had shut down, but I don't know if that would be true, so thank you.
Any more questions regarding the Recreation Department? Seeing none, one more time on the golf course. I see none. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
For answering all our questions. Thank you for the great job that you're doing for the city of Milford.
Thank you, and I appreciate the support that this board gives us so that we can do that. Thanks again.
You're welcome. The next account on the agenda is the Milford Government Access Television, but as we speak, she is operating, from what I understand, so she'd like to get put on the end of this agenda so that we can have TV coverage. When her replacement comes in, then she'll come out and answer any questions. Meanwhile, we have anybody flooding, well, I guess we don't, Flood and Erosion Board. Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, that board is doing yeoman's service to the community. I do know that Steve Johnson does attend most of those because Steve has been helping out with the Community Development Block Grant, disaster relief projects. There were 10 big grants that were awarded. That board was the interview committee for all of the engineering firms and the design firms for those grant-funded projects. They are nearing completion. Some of them have already been completed, like the Beachland project and the 4 different design projects. But that board has been doing good work, especially over the last several years since we've had Storm Sandy and Storm Irene.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does anyone have any questions pertaining to the Flood and Erosion Board? Seeing none, we'll go on to the Tree Commission. Mr. Johnson, you're going to be answering questions for the Tree Commission? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer any questions relating to the Tree Commission as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anyone have any questions pertaining to the Tree Commission? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Conservation Commission. Conservation Commission. I know Mr. Johnson has something to do with that.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Steve Johnson, Open Space Natural Resource Agent and liaison to the Conservation Commission. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have on the commission activities and what their focus is.
Anyone have any questions regarding the Conservation Commission? Seeing none, we'll have open on the account under open space. You want to give a little presentation on open space, Steve?
Well, it's been a varied number of activities across this past year. I would say that some of the highlights have been working on the Sustainable Connecticut initiative, which we received bronze certification on. I also done a number of presentations at the Milford Library, as well as partnering with Jonathan Law High School, or AP Environmental Science programs. And this past year, I've led a number of community hikes, and this past Sunday, for example, it was a Milford fundraiser library. On Sunday morning, we did a hike for about 9 people, family, young kids, out to the Solomon property, to Vernal Pool, wood frog monitoring, and for about 2.5 hours. So those are the type of things that is a great opportunity to connect people with our wonderful open spaces that we do have. I also completed open space inventory for the regional SCROG inventory that's posted on the SCROG website, and that's of the 15 member towns. So there's just been a number of activities, but clearly the CDBG DR projects have been a significant portion of my time that I've been focused on over this past year.
Thank you for that. Anybody have any questions pertaining to open space? Alderman Gurman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you to Director Johnson. What do we have for funds in the open space fund?
Right now, I'd have to get an accounting from finance. I don't have that with me right at the moment, so I could follow up after the fact.
Mr. Chairman, one of the recent discussions that Mr. Johnson and I have had is replenishing some of the open space accounts. One of the thoughts, and again, it would be brought to the attention of your board, was the sale of some properties that we foreclosed on through blight liens and tax liens upcoming, to utilize the sale of those properties to replenish some of those accounts.
Just follow up. So, and where else do those funds come from, if you can just explain to the board?
Well, the funds, the open space funds come from a couple of different paths, including development projects where developers pay into an open space fund, fees in lieu of account. There's also some funds that are generated as a result of small parcel sales that have been in effect in the city for a number of years. I believe that number was under $10,000 that was allocated to open space. This past couple of years, we've gotten some small grants. The Circa Dune Grant Project is one example where we've been doing restoration on the Walnut Beach area, and I know some of you have attended some of our beach grass plantings down there and some of the restoration efforts, and that was a little under $10,000. But as a result of that project, we got another $10,000 donation from United Illuminating to continue that work. So it's those type of things that you know, we work hard. A lot of these are sustained just simply through volunteer efforts, but they do make a bigger ripple out in the community, and when you get an opportunity like UI saying we want to contribute to that, that makes a big statement, and you know, for $10,000 to try to stretch those dollars even further. So.
Any more questions pertaining to open space? Alderman Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mr. Johnson. You're all over the city doing a ton of amazing work with the many hats that you wear. So one question that I have, though, pertaining to an area of open space that hasn't been utilized in quite some time now is Beaver Brook. If you could talk about, you know, some of the efforts that might be happening in that area.
Sure. Yeah, actually, I appreciate the question. So many of you might recall about 4 years or so ago, we had applied with Mayor Blake's support for a STEEP grant, in which we received in the amount of $500,000. Additionally, we had received a $45,000 grant through the CDBG block grant program that Julie Nash had described earlier. So that combined funds, we did the design project, got it permitted, and went out to bid. And the bids came in substantially greater than what we had the funds for, so we tabled that. We just, late last year, rescoped the project. We focused strictly on demolishing the existing boardwalk that exists and reconstructing the boardwalk. And what we were able to do, we went out to bid, competitive bid, and the Millennium Builders, who had done the pond dredging behind City Hall and North Street here in Stonebridge, was the low bidder. And so they were a wonderful group of people to work with. And so we've awarded that project. They're in the process of mobilizing their equipment to get out there and start. And the boardwalk project should be completed by the end of May, 1st of June is what we're shooting for. Part of the ingenuity of the good sense of selecting them, they've actually gone out and designed their own equipment that is amphibious to be able to use this project so it would minimize the disturbance in that Beaverbrook area. There will be some additional project requirements that we're going to do following the boardwalk construction, which are some parking lot improvements and improvement of the access trail from the parking lot down to the foot trail. And so we're going to be slating that for later this year, working a combination of Public Works. I've also applied for an additional $50,000 grant to help support that through the CDBG block grant for later this year. So.
Any more questions pertaining to open space? Alderman Giannattasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Johnson, I know when you first started with the Open Space Department, your first task was to catalog all the open space throughout the city, and I know that you've been working in other areas as well. Were you ever able to finalize that, or I was just curious?
It's a work in process, but I can tell you there's a broad range. It depends on how you view and define open space. And on the very broadest brush strokes of what open space is, if we looked at the SCROG regional open space, they're including areas like cemeteries, golf courses, and if we look at it strictly from undeveloped properties that the city owns together with deed restricted properties, we actually total up about a little over 3,100 acres of open space property on the very broadest views. If we refine that and look at properties that are specifically deed restricted as open space or purchased with the intent of being open space, such as properties up in the Eisenhower Park area, for example, that list narrows down from a little over 640 properties and 3,100 acres. It narrows down into about 260, 270 parcels, representing about 1,100 acres. So that's on the most really focused and purest form of open space, and that's properties that are deed restricted and intended to be that way. So.
Just to follow up, Mr. Chairman, so would that include properties that are in a land trust as well?
Yes, and the land trust is interesting. It's which I'm also a member of their board, not the executive board, but the land trust properties, they have about 30 properties representing about 130 acres. Interestingly, the Milford Land Conservation Trust, their deeds don't specifically state that they're deed restricted properties in perpetuity, but clearly the intent of the land trust, since it was formed back in 1972, I think, has been to just do that. That omission was something that became an opportunity because a couple of years ago, you may have recalled that we had applied for some emergency watershed protection grants, which the city declined to accept based on the low compensation for those properties that would require us monitoring these and documenting in perpetuity. However, 4 of the land trust parcels actually qualified for that grant, so the land trust is in the process of receiving a grant of about just a little under, well, probably close to about $95,000 to actually permanently protect those parcels in the Cap Pen Meadow upper marsh area. And it makes no impact to the way the land trust is operating those properties, but we'll be able to use that cash for some additional restoration efforts in addition to what the grant will provide. So it's a big benefit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Any more questions regarding open space? Seeing none? Alderman Beatty.
Through you to Steve, thank you. Would you just tell me again the acronym for the open space? I have the open space webpage for Fairfield, but I don't see one for Connecticut proper. Is there one? What did you say?
From the state?
Yes.
Yes, so there had been statutes by the state of Connecticut overseeing open space in Connecticut, and those statutes were removed. They wanted to leave the definitions and implementation of open space up to the 169 municipalities. There are, however, the Connecticut DEP's website has an open space watershed acquisition program, of which we in the past have participated in on a number of parcels. And that program really clearly defines open space as properties that are purchased for conservation values and undeveloped without any buildings on them. And in addition, the assessor's statutes govern the definition of open space, because there's an open space statute within the assessor's statutes that defines open space in addition to farmland properties, and they closely mirror what the open space watershed acquisition definition is, that it's conservation, undeveloped.
Thank you.
Any more questions regarding open space? I don't see any more. Thank you, Mr. Johnson, for answering all our questions and the great job you're doing for our city.
Thank you for all your support.
You're welcome. The next department on our agenda is Housing Code Board of Appeals. Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, if you have any questions, I'm happy to help answer those.
Does the board have any questions regarding the Housing Code Board of Appeals? I don't see any. We'll go on to Milford Promise Incorporated. Anybody have any questions regarding Milford Promise?
And Mr. Chairman, I know that Julie Nash had spoken to some of the things that Milford Progress is presently working on, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to help answer those as well.
Does anyone have any questions pertaining to Milford Promise? Alderman Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To you, Mr. Mayor, could you give us some of the projects that they're currently working on?
Sure. Julie Nash had mentioned a few of them already, including the tourism website. They're helping to fund that project. They recently helped to fund the planters that you see downtown. Right now they have holiday trees planted in those, but it's my understanding that they also have bulbs that are going to be sprouting and be planted with more spring-like flowers and vegetation very soon as the weather gets a little bit nicer. They have other projects that they are moving forward on as well.
I remember them planting the bulbs at the beginning of the year, and hopefully they'll be coming through and take the place of the real Christmas trees, or the fake ones, I don't know. Thank you.
Any more questions pertaining to Milford Promise? Alderman Golden. Looks like a typo. Once again, anyone having any questions for Milford Promise? Seeing none, we'll close under that account and we'll open under our last account is Milford Government Access Television. Kara. Thank you for being so patient.
No, thank you for letting me talk to the end here. We're all set. We've got people back here, so we're still live and on the air. So I'm happy to answer any questions the board has about Milford Government Access TV. We've had a really busy year. We've been doing a lot of work, a lot of thinking, a lot of discernment about our own mission. One thing that we really focused on this year is trying to bring live stream to the viewers of Milford. We now have installed live stream capabilities in the Board of Ed as well as City Hall, so we have two channels that really replicate what you get when you turn on your TV on Cablevision. What's also been exciting is through the grant that we received from Area 2 Cable Advisory Council, we were able to upgrade our file server here at City Hall. So we had, through that same grantor, we had upgraded the file server at the Board of Ed studio 2 years ago, and now we have a new file server in City Hall. So what's great now is both studios are both state-of-the-art, and they are both relatively the same workflow, so the same person can kind of go back and forth and know how each studio works. One thing that we've been a little challenged by is developing our own literacy in this equipment. So we are, I'm really excited. We have a few new members on our freelance crew who are really have the skill set to address any issues that might come up that are right here in Milford. We no longer have to be as dependent as we've been on the vendor. As you know, whenever something goes down or something's not working, we used to have to wait a little while for things to get fixed. I think we have some really great people in Milford we've discovered that can address any issues that might arise moving forward. So those are some of the things that we've been really focused on this year. Another exciting thing, through the grantor, we acquired a remote camera unit, a new camera unit that we're still in the process of training and implementing with. That camera unit has 3 cameras. It has a Sling Studio, so wherever there is an Ethernet connection, we can do it on Wi-Fi, but that's a little bit shaky. We prefer to have an Ethernet connection to plug in. We'll be able to live stream from that location as well. Right now, we're focused on one project we have decided to take on this year is to try to live stream all 3 graduations from law, foreign, and the academy. That's being pioneered by one of our committee members. We've met with all 3 principals. We've talked about what are the logistics. We've talked about how we can get students involved, because that's sort of the next thing that we would really like to do, is bring students onto the MGAT team and help not only as a wonderful volunteer resource, but as a wonderful professional development opportunity to our students as well. So the first time we're going to be trying that is at graduation, and then we'll see where that goes. We hopefully will identify some talent that we can bring on board for next year. So that's, you know, we're really excited for moving forward, and we're really grateful for your support, because I know that you all have all been very, very supportive of this, and grateful for your faith in us.
Thank you. Alderman Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. It was a pleasure being at the meeting.
Oh,
I'm a liaison to, and I just wanted to have you elaborate a little bit on the expansion of the other meetings that are going to be televised.
Yes.
You talked about the students and that graduation, but I know that there's other meetings as well, so if you would elaborate.
So at our last meeting, we actually said, okay, we have this remote camera unit. What are some of the priorities? What should we look at first? And we were really looking at feedback that we've gotten from the community. What has come, people have spoken to us about the sewer commission. There's interest in covering that. It's also been suggested public works, and there were a few there in the minutes of the last meeting that they decided to focus on first. I'm definitely going to reach out to the chairs and let them know before we show up with cameras that we're going to be filming this, but you know, out of courtesy. But you know, there is, and we've been looking at the schedules from other towns, from Fairfield and Orange and Woodbridge. The next thing that we might look at was police and fire are covered. It really, you know, we have these resources, and we want to not necessarily just cover every single meeting we can, but really focus on the areas that are of great interest to the community. And so for that, we would also be in touch with the chairs and be in touch with you. I know not every meeting is has a lot going on. So, if a chair calls us and says, look, we have this very important issue I would love the community to be aware of, they can reach out to us and we can send somebody there for, maybe a couple of times a year, not hit them every single month. So we're really interested in collaborating with the chairs. We're interested in collaborating with you to see where that where that interest might be. We want to make sure we do cover some of these community events, because the channel and the YouTube stream, it's nice to have all the meetings. We know that those are important, and we know those are our priority, but we also know that there's a lot of interest to some of these wider community events as well. So we do the spelling bee here. We're looking at the Mayor's Youth Awards, some of these other community events where there might be of great interest to our citizens.
Alderman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Kara. Two quick questions. When I'm trying to get to sleep and I want to be able to hasten that by putting on the Board of Aldermen meetings and turning on Channel 79, I rarely see our Board of Aldermen meetings being broadcast. It's usually a clock and it says City of Milford.
Yep.
Now, if I put on Channel 78, I
Yes.
always see educational operations
Yes.
around it's like 24-hour coverage. I understand that these meetings are on YouTube, but every once in a while I'm surprised to see one of our meetings broadcast, because
Yep.
it doesn't seem to be the case. Can you explain that? And then I have one other question.
That's sort of a programming adjustment we need to make, so that, we have a wonderful person who's programming the education channel, and we've just arranged for her to have remote access so she can actually program City Hall as well, so we can be a little more on top of tightening those up. The way it works is, a show will be scheduled on the hour, and sometimes there's some filler time, of 10 minutes or so, where one show is programmed to start at 2, but the last show didn't end until 1:45 or 1:52 or something, so there might be that filler time. So what we need to do also is look at how we can fill those gaps with content that's more interesting. So what we can do is we're adding some of our Minute with the Mayor segments that are coming from the Mayor's office. We can add some of that in. We can also add slideshows. We can add programming shows. But again, we're really developing more competency with this as we go. We've already had a year with that server in the Board of Ed. This new server at City Hall just came in last fall. And so for us, it's really about developing competencies and making sure that we're addressing some of these issues. I agree with you 100%. I do the same thing. I turn it on all the time, and I'm like, why don't I see a show? Another issue that we had that we are kind of trying to address is, what I love about this system is that when you record a meeting, you have no editing to do. This is a whole new world for us. So let's say we record a meeting and there's 20 minutes of executive session, or there's a recess. So we don't sit and edit out that anymore. We don't want to take the time to pull down the file and cut it. But I was just asking about this, and there is a way to program the server to jump from one time to another time. So you can actually, it's like doing a skip forward at a certain spot. So it's really about us developing a deeper understanding of what it can do, and then making sure that we're programming it in the best way. But I just ask for a little bit of patience, because it's like having a new computer, learning a new software. We're still getting set with that.
If I could just follow up, Ms. Chairman. It's hard to imagine anything being more interesting than what we do here, but certainly the Board of Education is entertaining, but not nearly as stimulating, I think, as the Board of Aldermen meetings. And on that note, staffing, you are the director of MGAT, yet I know you are actually here or over at the Parsons Center quite a bit, because I see you're working. What is the staffing situation? You're not depending upon the line producers anymore.
Yeah.
You have volunteers and you have...
No, we do have staff. So we have 2 freelancers. We've had 2 freelancers for a while. Ever since we added the Board of Ed studio, we added one more freelancer to cover those meetings. So she was really specialized in that technology. And then we had Arnie here at City Hall. And now we are cross-training a little bit. Arnie is, his availability is a little more limited now, but we're hoping to get him over there to train on the education studio. But we just added 2 more freelancers, and these are just hourly. They W-9, invoice us. We added 2 more, and these are Blessing Wahuchi and Garrett Clark, who are employees right now at Milford Public Schools in their MIS department. And I was really desperate for somebody with networking experience. I was desperate for somebody with live streaming and server side, all this. And so they agreed to come in and work with me as they were available in the evenings as freelancers. And it's Blessing who's here tonight. He was actually just teaching a Photoshop class at Foreign, and so he came over to cover me tonight. I rarely am actually in the control room, but we didn't have anybody to cover. Arnie had a commitment, Brooke had the Board of Ed meeting, Blessing was teaching, Garrett is also a coach this season. I am dedicated, and I will show up and do it as a volunteer. I don't get paid when I need to. And it's good for me too to actually do it, once in a while.
Thank you, Kara. Thanks for all you do.
Thanks.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Giannattasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Good evening, Kara. Kara, you mentioned that we had the new server in City Hall was delivered in the fall. I heard, and I want to ask you, is that the roof was replaced in City Hall and it was leaking over the winter. Was any of that new equipment damaged through that?
So the roof issues we had, the leak was in July, August. It was over the summer. And no water fell on the equipment, but the dust that got into the air, we felt was kind of, becoming an issue. We've since had every device cleaned and detailed. We feel pretty confident that they're in good shape to move forward. But I will say that that was also after in August when we discovered there was a lot of dust in the room. That's when our grant came through to actually replace the server. So we have a new server since the leak.
Okay, just to follow up, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned the possibility of having some other committees televised, and you mentioned Public Works specifically. If that were the case, would those meetings be held here, or?
So they don't have to be. That's the beauty of this. So we were really limited in the past to Town Hall and to Parsons to be able to live stream. We had this pretty good video recorder that we could kind of take around, but then we had to download the file and edit it, and it was really labor intensive, and we're really trying to work smarter and not harder. So this new camera unit that we just acquired, again, we're still training people in on it, but there's 3 cameras and an iPad, and we can load all the graphics on the iPad. The person can sit at the iPad and through radio connection with those cameras, actually direct a show, drag in the graphics and put it on live on YouTube. I can't get it live on Cablevision, but I can record the file and then put it on Cablevision later.
Okay, thank you.
But we're getting there. We're still, yeah.
Any more questions pertaining to the MGAT account? Alderman Vitale.
Mr. Chair, not to Kara, I just have something before we dismiss or we adjourn, please.
Well, any more questions pertaining to the MGAT account? I don't. Thank you very much, Kara, for answering all our questions.
Okay.
And a great job you're doing for the city.
Thank you.
Yes, Alderman Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if everyone knows today or yesterday that we lost a good friend, had passed, Bob Cummings, who was a longtime educator in Milford and administrator. He started way back in Devon Grammar School, Kennedy, Central, Lenox Avenue, Simon Lake, Central Grammar, Seabreeze, and I know he was principal of Orchard Hill School, good friend of mine, colleague of mine, it's sad, and he will be sorely missed. and I'd like my condolences go to the family. And to anybody who would like to know about services, it's Wednesday night, 4 to 7 at Cody White, and Wednesday, 10:30 at St. Mary's. So again, condolences go out to the family. Great educator, great guy, great friend. I think some of you on this board knew Bob, and sorry to say that he has passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Vitale. I'd like to say something too, as far as moving forward. I'd like to ask the board to, we're all volunteers here. I know we're all elected officials. We're all volunteers, and we spend a lot of time, doing the job of the city's budgeting. But we have to be cognizant of each other's respectful spaces. So moving forward, let's just keep that in mind. I'd like to run a nice orderly meeting, and I don't like to get anybody excited or out of order as well. So keep that in mind, and I appreciate the respect to the mayor as well as all of our board members. Please keep that in mind. I really appreciate it. Is there a motion to recess to the next budget meeting, which will be on Monday, April 22nd?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We got a motion and a second to go into recess. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're in recess. Thank you.